And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to my very first study session. I've never done a study session before. I've never done any of the Atlassian certifications before. And I definitely do have certifications from the past. But one of the biggest things that I wish I would have done was a study session. So with that in mind, I figured, why not do a study session with the internet? And so welcome, everybody, to my very first ACP-520 study session here. Joining me today is none other than King Bob. And Bob, I have a little bit of Easter eggs hitting all throughout today's session, so I'm hoping you spot it really quickly. But you do play a pretty prominent role in my Atlassian videos. Not sure if you've ever caught on or not.
I don't know.
Well, you'll see it.
I'll be spending too much time staring into kind of the background. So,
well, hopefully you catch it. But in my regular videos, Bob, I do like to leave that little Easter egg there. I've been waiting for you to comment on it in the comment section, but we'll see if you comment on it. But if anything, you should definitely at least claim the domain. Hello, Aaron. Welcome. Thanks for coming, Rodney. Hope you feel better, man. I am quasi fighting a minor cough, so we'll see how this goes. I don't have a mute button on my microphone. This is my fancy mic, so we'll see how this goes. But anyways, the agenda for today, folks, is we're gonna go over a couple of things. One, I'm gonna kind of walk you through how to get started, right? Like the different resources that are available for you. Obviously, this live stream is one of them, but there's quite a few resources, so we'll talk about those, and then we're gonna go into the actual material. So when you actually buy the certification, it comes with the course. Now, obviously, I'm not going to show you the contents of the course, but I am going to discuss them. I do have it up on another screen. So we're going to be talking, I'll be pulling or extracting facts and data that I think you should know. But the real thing that I'm going to be doing, that I'm going to be showing, is going through Atlassian has a PDF. It's called the ACP-520 exam topic, and it's just one long, giant, 3-page PDF that covers all the critical things that you should know for the exam. And then there's links. So I'm going to kind of review the topic, click on the link, look at the article, kind of walk you through that article. And then the most critical part is we're going to go into Jira or Atlassian and actually do it, right? So it's going to be very hands-on, where we'll actually look at real examples, try to reproduce any confusion. So study along. The chat is always available there. So if you have any questions at any point and you're just kind of like confused about something, or you don't understand something, or you just want to clarify something, that chat is available. Bob and I will be monitoring that and kind of jumping in. This is why Bob's here, to kind of help me out, right? Monitor this stuff, because I have 3 screens, folks. So I'm kind of focused on the middle screen. So Bob, please feel free to, something good pops up here in the chat, let me know. And
sure.
And we'll
be happy to. One more thing that I should also emphasize, that the study course, when you sign up for the ACP-520 study course, besides the topics PDF, there's a second PDF that's also provided called a glossary, and that is going to have a lot of the important terms that you're going to see throughout the course and also on the exam. So,
yep. And I do plan on reviewing the glossary here in these live streams. I don't know how much I'll show it. My wife was like, maybe you shouldn't show a whole lot. And I'm like, well, there's only one way to find out if you get in trouble, and that's by doing it. So I figured I'd do it and see if Atlassian slaps my hand. Maybe I just take the video down, but hopefully I don't lose that.
This is why we're doing it while it's still dark outside, right?
Yeah. We're doing it before hours, before the world wakes up. All right. So with that said, let's just jump into, I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to jump into, I don't even know how to share my screen. Where's Rodney when I need him? Share screen.
Isn't it the present button?
Yeah, I got the present button. Okay. Share screen. There we go. Entire screen. We're going to go right here. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of start off with a community article by our very own community leader, Mr. Jimmy Seddon. He's based out of Canada, Waterloo, and he's put together. He's one of our like head honchos here within the Atlassian community, and so he put together a how to prepare for ACP 520. And so just to kind of give everybody an overview of what the ACP 520 is. Unlike some of the other certifications that are like Jira specific or Confluence specific, or just they have very specific niches, or niche, however you like to say it. The ACP-520, while it's still a very niche exam, right? It covers the Atlassian cloud organization. I like to think of it as a blanket exam because it sits on top of the products. And we're going to get into a lot more detail with that. But this is a newer exam. It's currently on a promotion. Atlassian has it offered for only 100 USD. And normally it's like 250 USD. And we'll go over some of the details here. But as you can see, as of August, this is probably one of Atlassian's newest actual ACP. You may be familiar that Atlassian has since released 2 more certifications, but they're under the ACA certification, which stands for associate, right, Bob? Like these are just not
Atlassian Certified Associate. Yes,
right.
that's correct.
And so yeah, so those certifications not in scope for this conversation, but we're going to be focusing on the cloud administration. Now, why is this exam important? So let me give you my feedback and my thoughts on why this one's a super important exam, right? So a lot of people that are Jira administrators, and this is again just from my experience, the hardcore Jira administrators is what I'll label them as. They come from data center server versions of Jira. Guess what? In the data center and server versions of Jira, there is no admin.atlassian.com. Everything's kind of managed within the product itself, and especially when it comes to user management and so on and so forth. So when you move to the cloud, which you have until February to do, right? So time is ticking for you.
Unless you go data center.
Unless you go to data center, right? But Atlassian clearly wants you to go to the cloud because all the functionality is cloud first. So if you are a Jira administrator and your company is considering not moving to cloud and not moving to data center, well, then you're going to be in a little bit of a bind or a little bit of a pickle come February. But the best path, at least the path that Atlassian wants you to take, is to move to the cloud. And when you move to the cloud, managing your products and your instances of Jira is a little bit more complex. And so thus is born this ACP-520 that kind of is intended to walk you through the complexities of running an enterprise organization in the cloud, because let me assure you, it is slightly different. Yeah. So that's basically what the ACP is all about, right? Just helping Jira administrators figure out how to manage their cloud instances, because as much as you're going to still have to do workflows and screens and fields and restrictions and all the great Jira administration stuff that we do, there's a new layer of knowledge that you need to have, the Jira administrator, and that is knowing how to manage the admin.atlassian.com, which, as I mentioned earlier, sits on top of everything. So anyway, so kicking things off here, we got this video here, right? So, well, it's an article, but then a video, so you can actually watch this video. We won't actually go through it, but it's an 18-minute video here made by Jimmy. It kind of goes over a more detailed explanation of what I just explained. So if you're curious about what the ACP is all about, highly recommend you check out Jimmy's video. It's already got a good amount of views there. But the other thing that I want you to know is that there is, through Atlassian's University, there's a couple of different learning paths. So let's take a look at those real quickly. And so we have a learning path within Atlassian community, Atlassian University, that walks you through a couple of $40 courses. So there's a 4-hour Atlassian Cloud Administration. I believe this is $39. So Atlassian's official courses are usually pretty cheap now. They used to be much more expensive, but about a year and a half ago, they significantly dropped the price to this unbeatable price of $39. And so if you're completely new, if you have never really dabbled with the cloud, this would be a great alternative, or at least a great option for you to take, where you can, for $40 learn the ins and outs of what Atlassian Cloud is, specifically with respect to admin.atlassian.com. So there's that $40 course, and then there's the Atlassian Access. So Atlassian Access is something that is unique to the cloud. It exists technically and to some degree in the on-prem versions of Jira. What's called we've got Crowd over there.
It was Crowd.
Yeah.
But
so, go ahead.
But Crowd doesn't do exactly what Atlassian Access does. Atlassian Access is primarily used for single sign-on. If you're using a standard called SAML, which at the moment escapes, I forget what SAML stands for. I'm sure Rodney's going to speak up on
Security
that.
assertion markup language,
There you go.
which is like the
Crowd
standard
does
in.
not do SAML.
Okay.
So for SAML based SSO, you're better off with and you're on server or data center, you're better off with a Atlassian marketplace app, such as one provided by Resolution or Mini Orange.
Mm.
They offer single sign-on based on SAML. But kind of rotating back to Atlassian University, there is a question from Aaron Geister. How do you feel about third-party training versus Atlassian University?
So I've done the about 2021, so a couple years ago, I tried to do Atlassian University training because I had training credits and I wanted to take them all. Um, I don't know if it was because I already knew the material, but I found it very unstimulating, if that's the right word. I just, I, you guys, when I'm doing my videos, it's very not monotone, and I feel like the videos were very, I'll call them dry, but they're good, right? They contain all the facts that you need. I just like to put a little kick in my step. It's-
I
but other than
I
that,
I, I think, and to give my opinion, I think there's places for both. I think on some things you're definitely going to want to go with Atlassian University. For example, the certification prep courses, such as the one Alex is going to talk about for ACP-520, as well as the ACP-610 and 620s exam prep courses, include a voucher.
right?
So that's what you use when you
Great
register
point.
for the course to so that you're not essentially like doubling up your costs.
Excellent point. So yeah, so let's distinguish those. So the courses here, these are kind of like little standalone modules that are designed to just give you some insight. But the certification itself, and as you see, I've already purchased it. This right here is like an in-depth type of course as well, but it also gives you the voucher, right? So that's really the important part to know. But other than that, like I just said, I think at least the modules that I've done in the past where they're videos, I found them. I think it's because I already knew everything, so I kind of tuned them out. But they contain all the information you need, right? So if you want to know, I think my opinion would be third party versus Atlassian, right? And that would be that Atlassian's videos, it should, with the big giant asterisks, have the information you need to pass the test. A third party video may have the information you need to pass the test, but it's obviously going to be a little bit more opinionated, right? Especially like from this course, right? I've never taken the exam before, so I'm just going to review the concepts as I would prepare for the exam. Less, I'm not, or I should say, I'm not an Atlassian employee, sanctioning this training at all, right? So while these are going to be official trainings from Atlassian. All right. So with that said, let's see if Jimmy's got anything else. So as you can see, we had a couple of courses, right? The two different courses, and then there's the certification itself. The certification, as I mentioned earlier, introductory limited time of $100. I don't know how long this is going to last. It's been limited since May. I would get it if you're on the fence. You get 90 days to take it. So I just bought mine yesterday, and I have until February 19th to take the exam. So they give you a good amount of time. So worry not if you feel like you got to buy it and then take the exam right away. You do have some time from when you buy this to actually take the certification. And so don't feel pressured that you're like, oh my gosh, if I buy it today, I got to take it today. You definitely have at least 90 days
You have
to do it.
90 days to
Yep.
go through all the material.
Yep. Price is 100, duration's 180 minutes, passing score of 62%. So apparently that's what, 40 questions out of 65-ish, give or take.
About.
Yeah.
So the number of questions are going to vary. So questions are up to 65. They may the reason why it's a little variable is because on these Atlassian certifications, on the exams, they usually throw in a few questions that they don't grade, but they're there as far as testing goes to see if it is a good question or not.
Or
So,
to just mess with you is what I always like to
well,
say.
you know,
Takes you back to the days
that
of
might
the
be your
SATs.
reason for doing that, you know, but they claim it's for just to do some testing on it to see if whether or not it's a fair and valid question. So
I don't know about all that. All right. So here's a breakdown of what the exam is going to cover. So Atlassian organization is going to be 35 to 45% of the exam. So about 50% of your grade here is just going to be the first section. Then we got users and groups, 25 to 35, which I think is, in my opinion, users and groups as a Jira admin, once you have your organization set up, users and groups is probably what I spend 80% of my day in. Then we got admin roles and then advanced features, which covers the last sections of the exam. So this is the PDF that I was talking about. We're going to be going over this PDF. So if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and download it. And for the rest of the course, for the rest of these live streams, at least, I don't know that we're going to be able to do them all in one shot here. There's quite a few sections. So we're definitely going to be breaking this up into multiple live streams here over the next coming weeks. But that's the file we're going to be using. And then, yeah, so that's kind of the logistics there. Let me see if Jimmy's got any other insight. He's got links. So he just basically brought the links that we're going to be covering here. So go look at Jimmy's article if you're interested. We'll link it here in the description. And then some final thoughts. In my opinion, if you have the option of taking the exam at a testing center, take it at a testing center. Bob, did you take it you went to a testing center?
Yeah, just to reveal some context, I have taken the ACP-520. Actually, I took it last week and I passed. I did take it at a testing center. The reason you have the option of taking it at a testing center or doing it on demand from the comfort of your laptop. There are going to be some restrictions. It's going because it's a monitored exam. It's proctored. So they will require you to turn on your cameras. They will require you to the proctor will ask you to rotate said camera, 360 degrees up and down. Make sure that you're not like have anything posted for cheating. And they will also monitor the noise level. And because it might get a little chaotic where I'm at, I opted for the testing center. So it just requires a little bit of forethought of arrive early at the testing center, make sure and follow the testing center's procedures. They will validate your identity with so bring an ID.
And in my case, Bob's gonna have to physically drive to San Diego to drag me to said testing center. My disclaimer, folks, is I hate certifications. I not so much that I hate certifications, I hate tests. I rather, I don't know, do the most painful thing in the world and take a test. So I'm not the biggest fan. This is literally the only reason. And the reason I'm so scared is because I took the CISSP, or at least I should say I attempted to take the CISSP, at which point the CISSP exam had its way with me. And I was not very successful in that test. So
I will tell Alex right now, this exam is not near the level of complexity of the CISSP, at least this one.
It's what you say, but we'll see. All right. So let's jump into it. So again, I'm not going to share for privacy reasons of the fact that this is a paid exam, but I'm going to basically open it up. I'm in the getting started here, and I'm just going to articulate as best as possible. We'll go over some of the topics here, some of the items. I'm just going to scroll through it and read out some of the critical things that I think are important for people to know. So take note. If I'm speaking it, I think in my mind, I'm registering it as, ooh, this is helpful to know. This is something you should be aware of. And then what we're going to do is we'll switch over to that PDF, and then we'll jump into the actual tool and get started with that. So as I'm walking around 2021 survey, 87% of Atlassian certified professionals reported their credentials increased their confidence in their abilities of using and administering the Atlassian product. So definitely my thoughts on the certification. I know we had an episode of the Jira Life recently where we did talk about certifications, right? But I'm 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 a fan as long as you're not a paper tiger. And so paper tiger is something that I learned from my cybersecurity days, where a lot of people tend to hide behind the certification, right? And they depend on the fact that they have every certification to give the illusion that they know what they're doing. Hence the paper tiger, right? Because a tiger is fierce and scary unless it's made out of paper, right? And so just be careful, right? Be careful that when you do take these certifications, that you actually know your stuff, right? Actually be skilled in the thing you're taking, and don't just memorize facts and data for the sake of having a piece of paper that says that you memorize facts and data. So fortunately, as Bob was saying, right, the exams are non-trivial, right? In the sense that if you don't know your stuff, you're gonna have a really hard time.
That is correct. It is. So it requires several different levels of thinking. It's almost like being several moves ahead in chess. It's not enough to know this, but what you want to do is, because of this, I can't do X,
Right.
right? And that's what, and these are what the questions are really going to be going after, is if you know this limitation, why can't you do this? And that will help you weed out incorrect answers.
Correct. And honestly, the weeding out of the incorrect answers, I think, is the best method that we had going into studying, which was we clearly know what's wrong, and that leaves us, instead of having 4, 5, or 6 answers that are available to you, you literally only have 1 or 2 at that point, because you've eliminated everything else because you know what the facts are, right? And so as you know exactly what Jira can't do, or I'm generalizing Jira to be, I don't even know what to call this, admin.atlassian.com, because it's not Jira, but it's not a product either, right? So it's, I don't know, the thing,
Or
right?
I just call it being an org admin.
An org admin, yeah. And so let's talk about that for a second. So who's the ideal candidate to take this exam, right? So if you're an end user, if you're just like a scrum master, project manager, a product manager, a developer, this would not be a certification, in my opinion, that you would want to care
No.
for. But if you're a Jira admin, Confluence admin, Jira service management admin, any of the product actual technical admins, and you're in the cloud, this is 100% a certification that you should have under your belt.
I am going to add one more further thing. You don't have to be a Jira admin, Confluence admin, so forth. You can be what I would call a generic sysadmin, maybe somebody who is on the LDAP side. And as an organization moves to cloud, you're going to need to understand from this cloud migration, how are we going to have our users and groups synced up for a potential single sign-on situation. So typically those generic sysadmins, they may not have deep Atlassian experience. They may not know how to modify a workflow in Jira, but they are going to need to know how the assets that they have in a cloud-based LDAP, such as Azure AD, how the Atlassian tools are going to line up with that.
Really, really good point there, right? Because usually, I've always told people, right, when you're a Jira administrator for on-prem or data center, or what we'll just call on-prem, right, you do need to have a significantly bigger, intimate knowledge of IT systems. And I've always told people, when you come over to the cloud, you just need to know how to manage Jira. But when you're looking at this org administration, you definitely, those IT skills quickly rush right back in, because there's a lot of more IT centric technical chops that you need over there. Aaron says, I would say that the IAM team would be a good for this too, like a sysadmin. Very good call. Yep. Definitely good call. I definitely, in the teams that I deploy Jira for, IAM teams are a partnership, right? Because usually the Jira administrators are not like the Okta or LDAP admins, right? So you need to work in partnership with those teams, because there's a handshake that you have to do between the two. So keep that in mind, that if you are ever deploying Jira Cloud or Atlassian Cloud, and you want to set up securely, then you will need to partner up, or at least have a connection with other auxiliary teams. Now, I do want to share this section here, Bob. I thought this was cute. This is again straight from the course itself. They have a Trello guide, so you can download the template. If you're a Trello user, you all know I'm not the biggest fan, but Brittany, I know every time I say that, I feel like Brittany's going to come at me. But if you, they have basically like a little template that basically has all the sections and everything ready for you. So if you're interested in that, you can download the study template, and you'll have a Trello board to help keep you accountable. So let's go to overview. All right. So course topics. So as we talked about, I think I can share this, right? So we have this from the other slide, right? So Atlassian organization, we're going to talk about creating and managing an organization, managing multiple sites and products, managing product access, managing access requests, managing product subscriptions and billing. So that's going to cover, again, almost 50% of the exam. So very, very important stuff. And this, folks, trust me when I tell you, this is confusing. Very, very confusing. Product access, product roles, project roles, groups, right? How do the permissions, even though permissions is not really covered in the exam at the project level, but they are related. So how does someone have a license that's in a group that gets put into the right access in the Jira project? Like, this gets really, really confusing really, really quickly if you don't have a very clear picture of what this all looks like. So it's very, very important for you to understand how product access works, how groups work, right? It's super, super critical, which we're going to be covering in these live streams. Module 2, which will be in a future, so module 1, we're going to try to cover here within the next hour. Module 2 here, it will be probably next week after Thanksgiving, but we talk about user management, group management, troubleshooting access for users. Then we got module 3, which we talk about distinguished admin roles and granting the appropriate admin privileges. And one little disclaimer here that I want to make, Bob, unlike on-premise where you get updates slow and steady, the cloud changes every single day. So one of my biggest concerns in taking the certification, and one of the reasons why I want to take it now rather than later, is that the UI, everything that we're going to be showing you today, changes daily.
And that is true. I've actually spoken several times with members of the Atlassian certification team, and they know that the exam runs behind the UI. In other words, the UI is always, there are going to be changes on the UI that are different from the exam. And there are one example that we'll see later on is that there is a group that the exam calls the site admins group. Right now, if you open up an existing cloud, Atlassian cloud organization, you may see it, but it won't have the same power as a different group there called the org admins group. So some of these UI changes, you have to be aware of some of these UI changes. What they have advised is follow the course, follow the certification course. But be aware of the differences. So,
and
if you look at the exam versus looking at the interface, take what the exam course lays out.
And my biggest tip that I would give you, because this again is the reason I attribute that this is the reason why I failed CISSP, and not so much that I should have done a study group. But the reason I feel like I failed is I took the class because I did an instructor-led 5-day, 40-hour course, thousands of dollars. Obviously came with the voucher, also like $1,000, right? But then I waited the 364 days that you have to take the test. And in that 364-day period, I forget who makes the CISSP, but the makers of the CISSP, they decided to change the format of the exam completely. So when I came to take the exam, everything I had studied for it and learned was now like completely irrelevant. And well, not completely, but it was more irrelevant. And so I think that screwed me over. So my word down the street or on the rumor mill is there may be some changes that are coming here soon to the exam, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. They're looking at making changes to not just this exam, but all the other Atlassian certification exams.
So my recommendation, right? This is a moving target, folks. So jump in and just get it out of the way now before even more things change, because like I said, the UI changes quite a bit. The exam itself is gonna it be going through an iteration, and so it's hard to know your facts when the facts are last night's news. And so just get it in like rip it like a band-aid. Any thoughts there, Bob?
Yes. Don't procrastinate, Dr. Jira.
Working on it. I bought it today. Should have bought it 90
Okay.
days ago.
Okay. I'm just here to keep you honest. That's
Yeah,
one other thing in
yeah.
my job description.
All right. So what's in scope for the exam? So we got product specific content for only Confluence and the three main Jira products, which is going to be Jira Work Management, Jira Software, and Jira Service Management. And it also is going to cover Atlassian Access. This is cloud only, right? So if you in your mind have a deep, intimate knowledge of on-prem Jira, kind of toss that to the side because this is only for the cloud. So if you haven't used Jira Cloud, highly recommend you use Jira Cloud before you go in and get the certification here.
And actually, as a matter of fact, one of the best things that you can do to study for this exam is have a Jira Cloud instance or a Atlassian Cloud organization so that you can actually kind of follow along.
So what's not in scope? Content specific to any of the other Atlassian Cloud products like Bitbucket, Trello, Opsgenie, Status Page, all that is not in scope. So you don't need to know how any of that works, which thankfully is a really good thing because those don't play nicely anyways right now. So it's really good that they're outside. And then any content related to external user management, so non-Atlassian tools like Azure, Okta, LDAP stuff, right? All that is not covered, right? You kind of need to know how it works like fundamentally, like at a super 50,000 foot level. Like you need to know that Azure and Okta are like authentication and provisioning, but you don't need to know any of the technical details of it at all.
Right.
All right. So 86% of Atlassian certified professionals report their credentials boosted their ability to help their team do their best work. I wonder where do they get these numbers? I don't know. I feel like I'm the most qualified Jira admin on earth. I'm just kidding. Those are fighting words, right? But I feel pretty qualified, and I don't have any of the certifications. Maybe I fall under that 14% that doesn't have it.
It could be.
All right. Let's see if there's anything else here. So nothing that I'm seeing. Note on your company's cloud site, improve user management experience. Okay, so nothing good here. Remember, make a study plan, which you're all here for. This is interesting. So I'll share this here with everybody, right? So finally, be sure to engage with the Atlassian ecosystem, right? There's other people like us here that are very much interested. So check out the Atlassian community, check out community events. So one of the things that I haven't shown here is Las Vegas ACE ACP-520. And so the the community here in Atlassian, what was it, a month ago? Bob, you participated in this, right? 2
Actually,
months
this
ago.
was several months ago. This was back in
September.
August or September.
Yeah,
Yeah.
September 20th here. So there's an hour-long session. If you go through this video, our very own King Bob was present. And so they kind of had Atlassian, right?
Right.
The governors of the exam come on here and actually talk about the exam. So this is an extra resource here. Let's see, it's about 45 minutes long. As you can see, I was watching a little bit yesterday, right? So they'll give you again another high level overview. I don't think they went into any specifics, right? Like nothing technical, like actually showing how to do stuff in Jira.
They didn't go. They were really kind of going over how to study. They weren't really looking into how it works in the Atlassian cloud, but really how to study. This was a presentation with the certification team. These are the people that actually make the questions for the exam.
Yep. And one thing I will, because I've done my fair share of certifications in the past, and Bob, you have almost every single one known to the Atlassian community, right?
I only have like 7 now.
Only 7 out of 7. But
Well,
one of the things I want to stress, right? Like having a group or having just like a place, this stuff is confusing. It is, You might even know your stuff, right? But like even Bob and I, when we talk about these things, and you'll see it here in the next 50 minutes, we still have different we have different perspectives on the same answer, right? And so being in a study group, even if you feel like you can't contribute, you you can definitely challenge status quo, right? You can definitely challenge what people think is right or what people think is wrong. And so I definitely recommend that if you really want to like deepen your knowledge, get yourself a study group, right? Like an actual group of people that, because I think to me, it makes all the difference when you're going to the exam. The other big tip that I will give you that I think will make the biggest difference is find and take practice questions, which I believe are included as part of this course, right, Bob?
That's correct. There are
Right.
practice questions included as part of the course.
Because let me assure you, you do not, I repeat, you do not want the very first time you see the style of question to be when you're under the pressure, under the gun of being at the exam center, taking the test. That's not the first time you want to see the question for the first time, or at least not the question itself, but like the style of the question, right? You want to have gone through the motions of like, oh, this is kind of what they're looking for. This is how they ask it. This is how I should be thinking about like elimination and stuff like that, right? Because if you're waiting until the exam itself, which is what again burned me for CISSP, it was really really bad. It's not a good experience. All right, so that's kind of what they have there. So let's see if they have anything else that's good here. The ultimate goal is to help you gain confidence in becoming an Atlassian certified professional. Bob, why don't we talk about uh, the certification aside? What is the Atlassian certified professional? Isn't there like
So
a like a master certification? How does that work? And
So
you're one of them,
right
right?
now there are several levels of this. When Atlassian started out having certifications, they started with this level, the Atlassian Certified Professional. And these exams were kind of creme de la creme. These were really, really kind of for seasoned administrators. They often talk about the requirements of this being at least 1 or 2 years worth of experience. Um, and these eventually are along the lines of being a project admin for Jira, being a Jira admin, being an admin for Jira service projects. So in other words, using JSM, and now being an organization admin. So it's since then they've actually kind of taken a look to see what is there a level below, and that's where the Atlassian certified associate exams come in, where they're talking about Jira Software Essentials, as well as being able to configure Scrum and Kanban boards in Jira. And then if you want to get your feet wet, there are also on Atlassian University, there are free, absolutely free courses on essentials for Jira and Confluence, and those come with badges. And Aaron is correct where you need 2 exams to be counted when you're a partner to have what's called a certified individual accreditation. And depending upon how many of those certified individuals you have, it
And unlocks you
shows
next
you
levels,
what
right?
level of partnership you have. And so,
Right.
full disclosure, I work for a solutions partner, and these are kind of important to get. So,
Which is
yeah,
why I'm being peer which is why I'm
you know,
being peer pressure to get them.
well, I mean, to be fair, I do interviews with prospective consultants, and I will point blank ask them if they've done this, if they have experience with this, with the certifications, just to see where they're at, because it is such an important part of partnership requirement.
And to be clear, the new ACA ones do not count for this partnership requirement, right?
That is correct. It's actually these original top tier
ACP ones.
ACPs.
Yeah, the ACAs are brand new. So if your goal is to maybe work with the partner, like Bob's company, right? Solution Partners, because there's a handful of them. There's a lot of them actually out there. You want the ACP ones, not the. I don't want to say the word lesser, but lesser is the only word that comes to mind. ACA ones. Okay, so a couple of so again, taking tests, folks, is hard, right? If I'm taking you all the way back to grade school and standardized testing, get ready to unlock a whole set of trauma here, because everything that you feared when you were 6 years old is coming back and in an emotional whirlwind, right? So there's a couple of tips that I'm going to give you here that they give you, right? So some questions are going to have answers that are inarguably correct or incorrect, right? And so they're going to be very, very obviously wrong, or they're going to be very, very obviously right. And I think this is probably, again, one of the tips that we mentioned earlier. My biggest tip is process of elimination. I think when you look at the practice questions and when you actually go into the exam itself, find the questions or find the answers that are like just blatantly wrong, right? They're going to be absolutely wrong. And then that kind of helps you narrow down to the ones that you're kind of on the fence on, but one of them is going to be absolutely correct, right? So there's a correct answer on every single one minimum, and then we'll get into when there's multiple correct answers, right? But I think one of the biggest tips, right, if you're having trouble deciding which one's correct, try hitting it from the other approach, which is eliminate the ones that you know are for sure wrong, and that'll kind of help you hone in. Now, I can't help you if you're stuck between two and there's only one right one, so at that point you're gonna have to go with your gut.
That's where flipping a coin or eeny, meeny, miny, mo works out.
Yeah, and then that's where, again, 62% of pass, right? So take a chance. I did want to ask you, Bob, and please, if you can disclose. If you're not, then say pass. But can you bookmark the question and come back to it later, or is it like once you take it, you gotta answer it?
There is a feature on the exam where you can flag it and then take a look at which questions are flagged and
come back.
You can take the questions in any order.
Okay,
so you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could kind of skip around. I usually just start at 1 and go all the way to the end. Whatever ones I'm not sure of, I will flag, and then you have 3 hours for 60-ish questions. It usually takes me roughly an hour for my first pass.
Yeah.
And then subsequent passes, I'll concentrate on the flag ones.
Because one of the things is, like, you don't know if, like, you're stuck on question 3, but then like question 40 is gonna help uncover something that you weren't sure of, and then you go back to like question 3 later and go, oh yeah, this is now I'm 100% sure, if you might have been on the fence. The other thing is right, like, just go with your gut, kind of flag it, but answer it so that you don't. Because the other thing you don't want to do, right, is you don't want to go through the whole test in a pass and like you bookmark them, but you didn't kind of put your. I don't know if you could do this, right, but I would put your guess in, come back to it, and then double check it, because
you can change your answers.
Yeah, because if you don't, right, if you don't at least put your guess, then again, an hour later, an hour and a half later, I think you do have like the energy level and your like cognitive load level does taper off towards the end there, right? You just get tired. So you definitely don't want to be relying on memory to go, what was I thinking an hour and a half ago when I looked at this question first? So I would do that. The other thing though is definitely take advantage of the fact that you can skip around, right? Because that's one of the things that got me with CISSP, which was, one, you didn't know how many questions were on the exam. So I would also say, don't get caught up on like, do I have 65? Do I have 60? Do I have 70? Right? Like, don't get caught up on trying to do the mental math of like, how many did I pass or how many do I know I have? Because that tripped me up, right? I think CISSP had like 150 questions, but they weren't numbered. So I at no point knew where I was in the spectrum of how many questions I've answered and how many were left, especially since you don't know how many questions the exam is, right? And the insult to injury is that on CISSP, you can't bookmark and you can't go back. You have to answer. And you only have a finite window, right? So you gotta go and you gotta go because you don't know if you're gonna even make it to the end, right? Like that CISP is an exam that you might not even finish or answering all the questions. Again, not applicable here, but just giving you war stories from why I don't take certifications.
No, you won't find that on this exam. They're very, very fair. You go through as many times as you want within the 3 hours. When you are ready, you make sure that you hit the finish exam button. It's very, very plain and simple. And once you do that, it will present you with your score and whether or not you passed or failed.
Moment of truth. The jury guy says, in the moment, I don't count questions. If time is left, I'll count up questions I know I got right, but not during the, yeah. This is great advice, folks. So just don't try to do the mental math as you're going because you're gonna lose focus of the mission, which is pass the damn thing. Okay. Pay attention. So when you buy the certification, right, the exam voucher, you get the course, which is what I'm kind of reading through right now. But pay attention. I definitely recommend you go through the sample questions, right? As I want to echo that. I want to echo that. Seeing these sample questions during the you have access to them, you pay for them, take them, right? Practice them because you do not want to get to the exam and see the questions for the very first time. So pay attention to them, and then each one of them here will give you what I like about the sample, this guide here that you take, right, is each question, whether you answer it correctly or incorrectly, will tell you why each answer was correct or incorrect. And that'll again help reinforce the learning, right? Because I usually find that getting answers incorrectly and then trying to understand, right, taking a minute or two to understand why I got it wrong, but then try to understand the correct answer is just another way of reinforced learning. Any thoughts with that, Bob?
Absolutely. So it's really important that and you'll see when we get into I don't know if we're actually going to get into some sample questions or if you wanted to kind of
Yeah,
deconstruct into what
at this
it
point,
is, but
I gotta pick up the pace. Is all I know right now.
okay. What I will say is the questions are worded in a specific manner. They want to they want you to spell out the most definite answer.
Yeah.
And
So
so given the information that you have, and sometimes you don't have that much information. So anything that is vague is potentially a wrong answer. Any answer that where you could fill in a certain condition is more likely to be a wrong answer. And so you
yeah,
can eliminate that.
and so a couple of things with that, right? So special words, right? So pay attention to only, definitely, possible, and not. Those are like the four words that are going to show up quite a bit in the questions. So for example, they say, you're planning a trip overseas. Which item must you definitely take? Right? So the options are going to include things like your luggage, toiletries, a camera. However, if a passport is one of the options, then it is definitely the correct answer, regardless of anything else. Because if you have to pick between your passport or your toiletries, one is definitely got to be there. The other one's like, well, I can pick it up later,
Yep,
right? So,
exactly.
those are the things you want to watch out for. And then the second thing that I'll say that I kind of now forgot, dang it, I have to come back. But you said something important there, Bob. Oh well, my short-term memory is bad. But yeah, just be careful with the wording of it, right? Just be careful with how they're asking you for stuff. All right. Oh, I remember the annoying part, right? The annoying thing is, again, because of these UI changes and because of the way just the timing of things work, there were sample questions that I looked at where I'm like, it used to be true, but it's not true anymore. So that I think is the hardest type of question because you're like, I know I have a fact, but the exam is wrong, or vice versa, right? Or maybe the exam has the new answer, but you know the old answer, and the old answer is just not correct anymore.
Right.
So I think that's going to be my biggest annoyance coming into the exam is like, I know this stuff, but do they know this stuff?
And that's where it really is kind of a knowledge of I know what the UI is and I know what the course said. and during the exam, you really have to go with what the course said.
Yeah. Definitely not what I say. So the other hard part, and I think this is another complexity, is multiple answers, right? So there's going to be questions, and from my understanding, and Bob, again, if you can comment on this, please do, right? But the exam's going to tell you choose 2 or choose 3, right? It's never going to say choose as many as possible, right? But it's going to tell you specifically identify 3 items that are correct. So then when you're looking at your answers, you know that at a minimum you have to get 3 correct ones.
That is correct. They will tell you specifically how many answers you have to pick.
Now, this is the expert level tip. Don't leave any questions unanswered. Always choose a specified number of responses, whether that is 1, 2, or 3. Otherwise, so for example, if the question asks for give me three Jira products, right? And list 5 out of the 3, right? Well, you have to list 3 because if you only list 2, you will still get 0 points.
Right. They don't give partial credit on the questions.
So just hit 3 because you're still kind of screwed regardless, right? So just if you don't know all 3 or all 2, right, you still got to give 2 big. But don't make the mistake, because I've done that, right? Sometimes in the hurry of reading to the question, you miss the point that it's saying pick 2, right? And so you pick 1, and even though you have the right answer, you're gonna get 0 points because you didn't pick the next right answer. So don't get burned by those, because those are just low-hanging fruit, folks, that just, you're gonna miss points that you technically had, but because no partial credit, you're gonna be shooting yourself in the foot there. All right. And the last tip here is most questions are phrased in the affirmative. However, a few may have the word not to signal the opposite requirement. So for example, what should you not do if a pan catches fire? And so the answer is things like not throw water at it. So be careful with these double negatives, right? This is one of those things where be refreshed, and when you take the exam, right? I would say take the exam, clear your mind, be well rested, breakfast if you need it, right? But you want to be focused, because I think half the battle for you is going to be just reading the question correctly, right? Not so much knowing the facts and data, but you can really be thrown into like a rabbit hole of going down the wrong answer if you even misread the question.
Yep.
Any thoughts here, Bob?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So
So
you will
yeah.
probably see statements. Find the answer that is false, and so that's another one of those negative type of questions where you want to really read them. And yeah, it definitely pays to kind of clear your head, right before
You
you
don't
take
want to
the
be thinking
exam.
about you don't want to be thinking about life after the exam. You want your headspace to be in the exam.
Right. Right. And
So don't take it
to
in
me,
the
this
middle of
is like
turmoil.
one advantage of going to a separate testing center outside of
The
home.
home. Yeah, outside the home, yeah. I would agree. I think it's a little bit easier to focus there. And then of course, use the facilities before you go take the exam, because the last thing you want to do is, be doing the little pee-pee dance and
Right.
you're powering through the question. Now, good question though. Can you take a break, Bob? Like, do they allow you to maybe
It's
walk out?
dependent upon the testing center. Some testing centers have a policy where
Once you walk out, you're done.
you are allowed to pause. Other ones, you are not. So
Regardless though, like I would definitely, empty that bladder, because
that's
every
the
minute
first thing I
counts.
did.
Every
That's the
minute
first thing I
counts with
did when I
these.
got to the testing center was before I even signed anything, I was like, "Can I have the restroom key?"
All right. So the next thing is we're gonna go over scheduling the exam, which you get an email after you pay for the certification, where you have about 90 days to schedule your exam. So follow that email instructions. And then there's a sandbox, right? So this I don't think that you care for so much, but if you're gonna use your organization to practice, so maybe your company's paying for the certification, then don't do the practicing in production. Definitely use a sandbox. But what we're going to recommend is going to be to stand up your own free
Yep.
Jira or free Atlassian instance, so that you can practice along. But definitely you're going to need somewhere to practice, right? This is not an exam that you can just read a book and go take a test on. Like, you need to know the cause and effect of every action that you do in this admin.atlassian.com.
Right.
Okay, Jira Confluence, how much does it cost? Okay, so I think we're good. So we're ready to start. So let me put this course over here to the side, and I'll close out this one here. I'll close out this one here. Let me share my screen. So I'm not sure where to really start, right? But the first thing you want to do I don't know how basic everybody is here, right? But depending on who's watching the replay here, again, I wouldn't recommend, as Bob mentioned earlier, right? You want to have at least a solid 1 to 2 years of experience here under your belt before you go and attempt something like this. So this might be too basic, right? But you definitely want to just go to Atlassian. And I won't do this all the way through because I already have mine. But you want to go to Atlassian.com, try now, and just pick Jira software. This is going to set you up, right? When you pick Jira software, it's going to ask you for adding extra products like Confluence and Jira Service Management. You can definitely at least add Confluence. Again, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what happens after you purchase all this. So again, no credit card required, right? So it's free for 10 users. And so just click next, go through the motions of signing in, setting up your site. And once you set it all up, I don't know that you need to specifically have any projects or anything like that, because it's not going to be specific to the Jira product itself. But you do want to land something like this, right, where you have your site name, and then the magic's going to happen when we click on the gear here and we go to this Atlassian admin section, right? So in this Atlassian admin section, click on user management. Notice that we're redirected, right? We are no longer in the whatever your site name is, .atlassian.net. We have been rerouted to admin.atlassian.com.
So one thing that Alex kind of glossed over when creating your trial, Jira or Confluence, is, and there may be questions about this. You may see questions about this on the exam, about the actual process of running through the trial, right? How do you set up a new organization using the product trials? What exactly do you need? What don't you need? And also, what things will it require you to do? So these are some things that you might see questions on the exam.
So great point. So they are here. So setting up the cloud environment. Let's just walk through it, right? I definitely glossed over it, but we'll just do it again, just because so you got me thinking, Bob, right? I assume all of this because I've set them up so many times. But yeah, when you're in the heat of that moment, you're being asked a question of like, do you need the credit card or do you not need the credit card? Stuff like that. You might want to, go through this activity again. So I'll do the start now again, and I'll just, try Jira Cloud. And then I'll just select this for now. I will leave this as is, and I will do ACP-520 Ape Tech. Right, you do want this to be unique, right? And then you'll click continue. This is going to go and stand up the instance, and it takes a few seconds here for it to go through. And in approximately 180 days, I'll get an annoying email telling me, "Hey, it is time for you to it's time for you to
pay up, or this goes away."
No, to log in. They ask you to log in. They're very, very picky, these folks, right? They really want you to log in every 180 days or something like that. So this does take a little paint drying here. So bear with us, folks, as this instance is being spun up. The robots are hard at work. Awkward silences.
So one thing, and I think you mentioned it, right? It asks you for your Atlassian account. And if you don't have an Atlassian account, it will say, well, let's make an Atlassian account, right?
Right. So that's one thing. So I always tell people that are completely new, right? So it's going to ask you for your Atlassian account. And so your Atlassian account can be your company account, if that's what you are using, or it can be any email type, right? So it can be like a at Live, at Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, right? Whatever you got going on, that email becomes your Atlassian account. So they both become one, right? And in the cloud, one important thing is that every email is a unique account. So if, like me as an individual, I have, for as many emails as I have that many Atlassian IDs. So every single email will count as a unique individual, even though it's me logging in as the same person, just over, just different accounts.
Okay. So now we're actually at the point where we're not done yet creating our organization, because for at least for here, it looks like we're creating Jira, a Jira product in our organization. It's asking us to create a project. If we did this on Confluence, it would ask us to create a space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably one of the parts of setting up your organization.
Correct.
And create just like a dummy first project or dummy first space.
And I would say for the certification, doesn't matter what you pick, but if you're a real company doing this for realsies, pick the right one.
That's true.
Click next. Yeah, and then this will give you the name of your first project. So this would just be ACP, just 520. And just click create project there. A great thing that you should also know, right, and all of this, I think this is very, very handy in preparation. Understand what you get per payment here, right? Because some of the questions are going to be, you're in premium. Well, if you're in premium, you get capacity management, you get project archiving, right? But under the admin controls down here, you need to know that you get a sandbox in premium. And so you need to know that if a question says, hey, how many sandboxes do you get in Jira if you're on the free version of Jira? Well, that answer is 0, right? And if you're on standard, the answer is still 0. But when you go to premium, the answer could be at least 1, but you can click on it and get a little bit more information, right? And so it's important for you to understand what you get and what you don't get based on the paid version or not paid version of Jira and Confluence that you're in, right? So these admin sections here are definitely fair game, right? So knowing user roles, permissions, admin insights, I think is something that we looked at in the past. Knowing your release track, knowing how to see your user counts and product requests, right? Like this is going to be important for you to have. Similar stuff over here with your security and compliance. Bob, you kept saying a word that I am not familiar with, the DMARC, DRAM, DRAR?
DMARC, yeah, DMARC. So when Alex, when we have the live session for module 4 about the advanced features, we'll talk about that. That allows you to set up custom email domains. So instead of notifications coming from Jira at organization.atlassian.net, it may come from Jira at organization.com, right?
Yeah.
So it's how you set up those custom email domains, because it will let you do that. There is a process for you to go through, and it follows a standard called DMARC.
Cool. Well, I accidentally dropped out of the course, so I'm going to try to get it back over. I should probably show you guys here, because I think this is a question, Bob, that your team had one time, right? So when you go to the Atlassian Certified, you can go to My Learning Activities, and you'll see the course that you've purchased, and then you can get back into it there. So if you ever close the window accidentally, you can always get back into it. So I'm going to go now into the Atlassian organization and cover this over the next 30 minutes or so. So how do we create and manage an organization? So let me try to describe then here what happens, right? So when you only have one Jira and one Confluence, each of those is a product. You have your Jira product, you have your Confluence product, right? And there's a lot of products you can have. You can have Jira Work Management, Jira Service Management, Jira Product Discovery, obviously Confluence, right? Those are the ones that are in scope for the certification. But those are all those are all products, right? Those are all Atlassian products under a single site. And that site, in my case, happens to be, right? As we just made our new one, I have aptechengineering.atlassian.net, right? But I also have another one, the one we just did, right? Which now I'm losing it. What did I call it? ACP what? 520?
Yeah.
ACP-520 ApeTech, right? So this right here, this URL is another site. These are different sites. They can't talk to each other. So as you can see here, when I expand this, I don't see my other one. I see other ones that I have, right? But I can't see my ApeTech, this one, ApeTech Engineering, right? Because they're different sites, and most importantly, they belong to different orgs. So when you click on the admin.atlassian.com, this icon right here, or this little section right here, this is the organization name. And so this is made automatically when you go and sign up for your product. And so as you can see, when I go and click on my org over here, and this is going to be a little problem because I have two different accounts. So bear with me as I have to toggle. Switch account real quick. Right. So as I'm showing all this here, I'll be able to select the site that I want to, and you'll see that the site has now changed. Sorry, the org has now changed. Right. So these are all the different products that are within this organization. Again, when you make your Jira for the first time, this is all done for you. It's all done on your behalf. But notice that you do have the ability to have, different experiences there. So that's the org, okay? So the org sits on top of everything, because you can, if I wanted to, bring in my ApeTech Engineering into this organization. There's a method to move it, right? There's a transfer your products over here, which we'll get into much, much later. But you could, if you wanted to, centralize everything. So you could have multiple Confluences, multiple Jiras, multiple Jira product discoveries, multiple Jira service managements, each with their own unique URL, each with their own site URL, but all under this same organization. So think of the organization as an umbrella, right? It sits on top of everything. And so we'll kind of start here, right? So this is a great picture of what is an Atlassian organization then, right? So obviously we're in admin.atlassian.com, right? And this is this new, there's an original and centralized thing. Bob, do we want to talk a little bit about that for a second, of what's the difference?
It's beneficial for things such as users and groups, kind of where it is. But I usually defer. I usually kind of most of the time I've usually just gone with centralized, just because that's where I see it most of the time.
Yeah,
I rarely see it on the original.
So let me add a little bit of context there too, right? So original versus centralized, right? It's just where the placement of things are in the UI. To the best of my knowledge, because I interact with both on a daily basis, everything, all the actions and activities you'll do as a Jira admin are there. They're just in different places just to mess with your mind. I can't think of any other reason why Atlassian would have both.
Alex isn't paranoid.
You're
not paranoid if they're really out to get you.
Yeah, they're out to get me. So scrolling down a little bit more, right? So this is important for you to understand, right? So we're going to get into managing your products for an organization. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier, right? So in your Atlassian environment, right, this is going to be your admin.atlassian.com. You're going to have your organization. In my case, my organization is called ACP-520, right? And so when you're looking at that, I right now only have 3, right? Confluence, the Jira admin, and the Jira software. But as I mentioned, right, it is possible for you to bring in multiple versions of Jira software, right? But notice that the URLs are different. That you cannot have 2 Jira softwares with the same URL, but you can have multiple Jira softwares with different URLs in the same organization. So that's definitely possible. And Bob, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, so I know you can migrate, right? So you can move one instance of Jira over to a different org. But me as an org, can I go back to admin.atlassian or to Atlassian.com and buy another one and keep it in the same admin?
Yes, it would ask you to create a site.
Okay, yeah. So as you saw here, right? So let me go back. So you can go to products, right? And you can click on add product, and then you just pick what you want to buy. So I'll do another Jira software. I'll hit select, and I'm going to give it a different name, right? ACP 520 ApeTech 2, right? And so I can agree to that. And now we'll watch a little bit of paint dry. But actually, so I've never done this before, so I'm actually kind of glad that we're doing this. Right? These are these things where you're gonna get value in just practicing and doing it and trying to, I want to say break it, but trying to recreate it, right? So I'm essentially looking through the documentation and I'm like, how do I get this kind of environment so you understand how it fundamentally works? And unless you actually go and buy it, right? And I do say buy, but it's all free, right? But unless you actually go and do it, it's hard to remember in the heat of the exam how it works if you've never actually gone through the motions and click. So if you're watching here on the live stream here or the recording, definitely go through and click around and do it yourself, right? Because you're going to get tremendous value in doing this, right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to recreate this kind of picture where I have two Jira softwares all in the same organization, because up until a few minutes ago, I knew it was possible if I moved an existing Jira software into the organization, which is an advanced feature. But now I've also learned that I can just simply go to the product section. Man, this thing is painfully slow. And buy another one. So, Bob, do you know if there's a limit to how many you can add in here?
Nope, no limit.
Nope, like you don't. Okay, so I was gonna say nope.
No. There's no limit.
As long as you got a credit card.
It's yeah. It depends on Alex's credit card. I mean, he's Mr. Moneybags, so I'm sure he's got a higher limit than I do. One thing that I want to mention, when we talk about these separate instances, they really are separate. In other words, they can have separate apps.
Correct.
Each instance could have its own accounting of the apps in there, and so you don't have to be stuck with having to have the same apps.
And the data doesn't talk to each other, so I can't have an epic here that talks to a story over here.
Correct.
The issues are siloed to their site, right? Confluence and Jira, they'll talk to each other, so I can reference issues in the sorry. I can reference issues over here inside this Confluence, but I cannot go I can't do the X formation here. Now let's see if this one finished yet. Wow, this is really bad. Slow. But let's talk about this Bitbucket, right? So Bitbucket and Trello, as of this recording and as of the certification today, this is why, again, I encourage you folks, take your certification here before the end of the year if you can, because I hear through the rumor mill that this is slowly going to make its way on over to the left.
It is, from what I've heard.
Not official yet, right? So these are these things where you also want to be careful where you hear your information and how you heard your information, right? Because Atlassian does put out regularly information of here's EAPs, early access programs, to new features that are coming out that aren't on the exam. And so if you try to answer the question based on the EAP exposure that you have, you're going to get the answer wrong. So keep that in mind, right? Sometimes having too much information can kill you, which is why I'm so scared, because I try everything out. So my perspective of what is true in the world of Atlassian is much different than wow, this is really slow. Then okay, so we'll kind of keep going down. We'll come back to this because this creating the first year was not this painfully hard, but apparently creating more takes a little bit longer. So here we go with the managing users. This right here, folks, is something you definitely, absolutely want to understand 100%. And so let's spend a couple minutes here as I'm clearing my throat. Sorry, I got a mild cold. Ronnie must have given it to me from all the way from Atlanta. And this right here, folks, you need to master this. This right here is probably one of the most confusing things of being a cloud admin. And I think it's really, really important that you figure it out, right? So let me try to break it down to the best of how I kind of break it down usually for people, right? And so look at the coloring of these bubbles. This is very, very important, okay? And we'll talk about Atlassian Access briefly. I know we're gonna talk about it in depth in the future, right? But Atlassian Access, for full disclosure, is a separate product that has a separate bill within the same big bill, but it's your bill is a different line item in your bill. Okay, so
Right.
you have to pay an additional fee on top of your Jira fee, on top of your Confluence fee, for Atlassian Access. Now, there's some exceptions if you're an enterprise customer, which we'll talk about again much later down the road. Is that you?
That's me. It's sorry.
What the heck are you vibrating over there?
I live by an airport.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Ah, sorry for this is why you're awake all day. Okay. So, anyways, so Atlassian Access again, we'll talk about a little bit more detail, right? But out of the box, what I'm doing right now, right, with making my new Jiras, wow, this is still going, right? You get these gray bubbles. These gray bubbles here represent users, right? And so you get a directory out of the box. I can switch back over to my other one, but really at this point, I think I have to go multiple browsers. Otherwise, I'm going to be logging in and out of different orgs and different accounts, right? But you automatically you don't need Atlassian Access to manage your users. Okay, you can very much invite anybody you want to your Jira and to your Confluence, put it in their email, put them into a group or a license, and King Bob's your uncle, right? That's all there is to it. Now that comes with some risks, right? Because one, from a management perspective, now you have to invite 1,000 people. Two, you now have to set like password policies and whatnot for those 1,000 people, right? So there's no two-factor authentication. There's no single sign-on. It's a very, very, very weak policy that you get. It's very basic, username and password. But in 2023, username and password just doesn't quite cut it anymore, right?
Yep.
And so you need that 2FA almost everywhere you go. And I kind of feel like Atlassian should really make this, part of the core system. Like cybersecurity should not be a funnel here for higher sales, but I don't work at Atlassian, and I'm sure they make a lot of money from Atlassian Access, right? So that's just basically how it works out of the box with these gray bubbles. Now these blue bubbles, you can kind of see that they kind of filter from all the way over here. So think of this item all the way over here as your Azure, right? This is you're going to be, if you're a Microsoft shop, this is going to be your Azure directory. If you're not a Microsoft shop, this is going to be then like your Okta. All right, wherever you have your users, but you're going to put your users in some sort of a Active Directory, if you will.
Right. From your IDP.
For whatever you have in your company, right? There's a couple of different options out there in the world. And so those users are in here, then they get pushed in. So there's a handshake, right? There's settings that we'll talk about much later where you establish a handshake between Atlassian and your IDP, right? And once that handshake is established, then you can dictate a group of people or a bundling of people, if you will, to then come into your Jira or your Atlassian products. And then via Atlassian Access, they get pushed into your directory. So this is the preferred method, especially if you're a big organization, right? And I would say the moment you go over 2 people, I mean, if cybersecurity is like a thing for you and your company, you want Atlassian Access from day one, because it's the only way you're going to be able to ensure single sign-on. It's going to be the only way you ensure multi-factor authentication.
Right. And then and the nice thing about single sign-on is the policies that your organization has for adding people and subtracting people that can automatically determine whether or not they become Jira and Confluence users outside of the organization. You don't have to, the Atlassian admins don't have to worry about that. It's up to whoever is handling the LDAP.
Correct. So you would create groups in your LDAP over here in your Active Directory, and then those people, when they get onboarded to your company, they get added on. Those groups get pushed, right? So they get re-updated, as if you will, and then they just match what you've already configured. So then everything's great, right? Then your management of Jira, as far as user management goes, is super easy because it's a lot trivial at that point. But you then run into some different problems. And so some of the problems that you run into is now you just can't remove a user, right? The user can't, like, I can't go into the directory in Jira. Wow, this thing is like, let me hit refresh here. It's still taking a long time. Okay, I started all up. Wonder what that's gonna do, Bob. But you just can't go to a user and delete it. So these gray ones I can delete all day long, but these blue ones I can't delete. I'd have to delete them from the source over here. And sometimes as a Jira admin, you don't have access to the source. Another pain point that you have, these users in the cloud, and this is a difference between on-prem, right? Because on-prem, you can change the email and you can change the name, the display name of any user. But in the cloud, you don't have that power. You can only make a recommendation. So there's a button in the UI that says suggest changes, and you can tell that individual, hey, you should update your email or you should update your display name. When you go to your managed users, which are the blue ones, which are coming through your, your Active Directory or Okta or whatever it is, you have to change their name over at that source. You can't do it within Jira or Confluence or even admin.atlassian.com. So keep that in mind, because these are common questions that I usually get from a user saying like, hey, my email doesn't match my display name and I'd like for them to match. And you're like, well, sorry, you got to go talk to the group that manages this over here, because only they can make the changes over there. So that's how that's working. We are just stuck here. We definitely hit like a little bug with Atlassian here. So let's just keep going down, right? So here's some of the things that are available for your managed accounts, kind of what I was talking about, right? So granting product access. Let's talk about domains too. Then I think this is getting a little bit out of order here, but their documentation sends you down this track. So let's talk about domain for a second, folks. So when you do go the Atlassian access route, you have to own a or verify your domain. And what that means is your, at kingbob.com, that's your domain, right? So all your emails is going to be like bob@kingbob.com or alex@kingbob.com, right? And so that @kingbob.com needs to be verified by Atlassian, and there's special steps that we'll again cover later on down the road that establishes again a trust, if you will, between your products and Atlassian Access and the internet, I guess, for that matter.
Right. It's basically that you definitely own that domain. So
Correct. And you can own, and only one org can own the domain, right? So this becomes a problem when you're doing like M&As, right? Mergers and acquisitions, because if you had your own Jira and your own Confluence and under company A, and now all of a sudden you now belong to company B, well, your company B should own or verify your domain if you're going to be merging, right? Because
right.
you can't have it verified in two places, as far as I know.
Also, in verification, subdomains don't count. You have to do a separate verification process for every
each.
subdomain. So a subdomain is anything before the let's say if we have company1.kingbob.com, company1 is a subdomain of kingbob.com.
Yeah.
Right. And you would have to separately verify that subdomain. Oh, you're good to go.
We're good to go. Okay. So now I don't know where to find it. How did I get signed out? Okay. We'll just do this. Create project. Again, folks, just to remind you from like 10 minutes ago, we're trying to add a separate site over to the same org. So now I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to go back to my admin.atlassian.com, which I got rerouted out of. And under products, you're going to see that I have two Jira softwares. Jira software under ApeTech 2 and Jira software under no ApeTech number, right? So this is how you're able to have multiple of the same product. So you can just simply keep clicking that blue add product, and you can add any of these products to your organization.
So one thing that I want to kind of focus on that will probably be important is if you take a look, you'll see that Alex has two Jira softwares. You saw how he created that. He also has two separate Jira administration products.
This is newer.
I'm sorry?
This is a newer feature. This didn't used to be like this.
Right.
At least in the classic or original way, right? This is more of the distributed way.
So Jira administration is a product, all right, that covers any administration of a Jira product. In other words, Alex has in his one site Jira software. And that the administration of that Jira software is covered by the accompanying Jira administration. If Alex decided to install Jira Service Management
I'm going to do now
to that site, the original Jira administration would cover the administration of that JSM product.
Yeah, so I'm adding that now, right? So we'll see it in a few seconds, but the JSM is not going to add another line item. And I really hate that I get kicked out of this thing.
Right. So, and basically whoever is a member or whoever has product access to Jira administration is a product admin for any Jira product. Jira software, Jira service management, Jira work management.
Correct. Yeah. So all the Jiras kind of get bundled up into this administration because you don't need to have separate administration privileges to do Jira service management over Jira software over Jira work management. They're all going to be in the same UI. They're not going to be treated exactly the same. The access to them, right, from the user perspective, that you definitely want to, triage appropriately. But the administration portion, you're going to get admin to one or the other. And then also to further complicate things, when you're on premium and you add sandboxes, this then further adds, because you're basically adding a new site at that point when you add a sandbox. So that does add a little extra layer of complexity there. It feels and looks exactly the same though, but it's the same thing, right? You got to grant somebody to be the admin of that site and a user of that site. And so let's actually look at that, Bob. So if I go to my directory, right, and if I invite a user to it, right, I'm going to just do Bob at King Bob. By the way, this I feel should not work, but it works. Like, I don't know why.
It works, and it's actually something to keep to make a note of.
Yeah, this is just crazy. I can literally make up a bunch of names, right? I can put Rodney at kingbob.com, right? And so now when you see that I have my extra products here, right? So my Jira Service Management that I just pulled up, it's now available. So I can say, hey, I want these two users to be either an agent, which means they're consuming a license, or maybe I want them to be a customer, which means they don't consume a license. Or maybe I want them to be both, but then you get a warning because you're granting multiple roles, and the paid role that you give a user is gonna take precedence because the last thing wants that cash, right? But let's just say that we give them a user. For Jira software, you can either give them a user, or you can make them an administrator. This is strange. This is weird wording. User access admin. Doesn't this used to say?
That's actually a UI change.
This is a
that will not be covered on the exam. So
don't worry about this. This is new. Yeah, this was not new before.
That is new.
Yeah, because this does not give you the full admin, right? To be the full admin, you need to come down here and change this none to be a product admin. And then that will give that individual product admin to all the Jiras, whether it be Jira Service Management or Jira software.
Right.
The other thing that I always
admin for any Jira product.
No, the other thing that I always do as well, and is I, as a safety, right, go to the groups and I still add them to the org admin group. This, in theory, should take care of it, but I found that it doesn't always take care of it. Any thoughts there, Bob?
So you're actually, if you add them into that org admins group or on the exam, that site admins group,
admins, yeah, because it's no longer
you're actually kind of giving them the keys
to everything,
to essentially everything. They can add groups, they can approve access requests, they can and they may also be able to add products.
So that's a really good point. So I know you're gonna have to drop here in a couple minutes. So
I'm actually good. I can stay.
Okay. So here's taking that to another level, right? Because again, this is all very confusing, folks. Unless you actually do it and try it and kind of log in, and it takes some homework, some extra effort on your end to log in, log out, and try different things, right? But watch this. When I go to Jira software, ignore this other admin here because this is like a red herring? Is that this is a fake thing? It won't be on the exam. This is very new. Don't worry about that, right? Most of the time, you will only see user. Okay. So for Jira software, you can give somebody a license, become a user, and you'll pay for them. Down here, when I make somebody a Jira product admin, they're going to be an administrator of Jira. Now, why Atlassian doesn't do this blows my mind, because when I go to Confluence, notice that they have a product admin one here as well. So doing both the user and the product admin here, is the same thing as doing the user here and doing the product admin over here. Just Atlassian, for whatever reason, and only for Jira, broke it out into 2 line items, and in Confluence they left that as a single.
Well, I think it's because the different Jira products all operate on that same core platform.
Right, because there's no Confluence work management or
Right.
Confluence service management.
Right.
That makes that, so that part makes sense to me then, right? So, but just be aware, folks, that the product admin though, right? But the key takeaway though is when you give these people a product admin, this means that this individual for this site, right? For this site here, notice that's a different site from this one. For this site, will be able to be an administrator of this Confluence and will be an administrator of this Jira. If I give them this org admin, this supersedes, if that's the right word, everything. They're going to be able to be an administrator of everything here, not just this one or this one. They're going to be able to be an administrator of everything if I give them this org admin. So be very careful with who you give org admin to, because it will give them too much power, right? This is usually, I mean, it just depends on your company, right? If your company is managing everything together, then yeah, just give them org admin and then you're good there, right? But they're going to be able to do everything at that point, which is a different take from site admin, right? Because site admin is only for the site specific. So maybe that's why this is giving me a hard time, because I have multiple sites here.
Yep.
Because what I'm going to do on the side here is I'm going to log back into my other ApeTech one, the one we were looking at earlier. And I'm going to show you that I don't have this phenomenon over there. So give me a second while I log into that account real quick. There we go. Okay. I just need to be in a different browser because otherwise I have to toggle between the two accounts. So when I go to my user management here and I go to the same thing of adding a user, directory, we're going to add Rodney at kingbob.com. Notice that I have sandboxes here though, but this one, I still have my old site admins. So this is why, again, it gets really confusing because Atlassian, they're like in between, right? So some people are going to have site admins. Notice I don't have an org admin. It's not in here, right? So some people are going to have org admin, some people are going to have site admin, but the exam is going to screw you with site admin only.
Well, to be fair, they don't make a mention of org admins.
But the UI does.
They
So
won't make a mention of the org admins group.
But if you're looking at this for the very first time, right, then you're only going to know org admin, which is where I think you're going to get screwed. So anyways, so let's keep going down the track here, right? So now that we kind of know so we were able to recreate this picture, right? As we keep going down this list, the Atlassian access, for this to work correctly, you need to verify your domain. So that's what all this is about. So when you verify your domain, this basically tells you what you get if it needs the domain verified, and it also requires Atlassian access, right? Because my understanding is you can verify your domain without necessarily buying Atlassian access, correct?
That's true. The best example is if you use Gmail, if you use that, you can set up a verified domain if you have if you use the Gmail workspace, Google workspace, if your company does.
Yep. So I'm in settings here and I'm going to domains and I can verify my company domain. So I can go here and I can do, kingbob.com, click next. It's going to give me the information, whether I'm doing DNS, HTTPS, a Google Workspace, or Azure AD Sync. So it'll give me the right information there, right? So I can choose this and, you go through all those steps there, right? But I'm able to verify the domain and I repeat, I do not have Atlassian access in this instance. So you are able to verify without necessarily needing Atlassian access. And again, folks, this is what I'm telling you, like, you can't just show up and take this dumb thing, man. Like, you really got to know the difference between what is a required domain or what does a verified domain give me versus what does Atlassian access give me. And so, like, pictures like this is something you got to print out and put in your bathroom and something and look at it while you're on the can there so that you can just memorize this stuff. You don't do that, Bob?
No. Did I mention I have a photographic memory?
You did mention that, and my wife brought it up yesterday. All right. Let's see. Management. What do we need to talk about here? Manage products for an organization. We'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but let's talk about managing products for an organization. Which we kind of already talked about, right? So, in your organization, depending on your sites, you can have multiple products, right? And as you saw, in one site, you can only have one Jira
Instance,
software. Yeah,
right?
one instance of it. But in your organization, you can have multiple of the same. So as you can see here, we have two Confluences. In my example over here, we have two Jira softwares, right? But watch this. If I try to add another Jira software and I go over here, right? I don't have the option to add to an existing site, right? So watch this. If I try to add Jira Work Management, let's see if it gives it to me. Right? See, I have the option to add to an existing site.
Mm-hmm.
But once you already have one of them, like I already have a Jira software, the only path you can take is make a new site. So you can only have one of each product in a site. So if there's any questions on that in the chat here, we're still wide open for y'all to ask questions, right? But it's important for you to understand how this works there. Managing users at the site level. This one's an interesting picture, right? So this right here tells you, right, through Atlassian Access, you're able to again manage your users and then just pipe them directly into your site. So one of the great things about having these managed accounts, right, and you can kind of see it here, is that when I go to my directory, my users and groups sit on top of my products. So I don't have to go into Jira and add a user, and I don't have to go into the other Jira and add the same user, because all the users are managed in a bucket above Confluence, above Jira Software, above Jira Work Management, Service Management, right? From here, I can simply click into the user and then grant them product access to whatever products I want. But all the users are managed to just one single location. So that's why when you're looking at this picture, it's the same blue bubbles, because as long as you have a managed account, or just any account for that matter, right, you can use them in any site as long as they're within that organization.
Right.
So what does not work is if you have two organizations, those users are not going to talk to each other. So they're not going to be the same from the same source like that.
Right. And you can actually see from the previous picture that when you allow product access, it will allow you to specify which instance of that product you can have access.
Here, right?
Yep, right there. So you
Yeah.
could so if there's the two instances of Jira software, you can see that
I can make one none.
yeah, that one has none, and then the second one could be a user.
Yep. So that's how that works there. So that covers what is an org. So let me look through the question here and just kind of let me stop sharing for a second so that I can read through this, right? So just looking at 1.1, wow, this is going to take a long time to go through all this. So we covered what's an Atlassian cloud. We went over the sites and orgs. Users can be org admins for multiple organizations. It is possible for a user to serve as an org admin for multiple Atlassian cloud organizations. That is definitely a fact. In case they will see those organizations listed in the admin hub. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is interesting. So I'm fortunate enough to be the org admin for multiple orgs. And so when you come here, you'll notice that this is a drop down. So I can click on this drop down and you can see the two different orgs that I belong to. So I can just simply switch over to that org and I'm seeing a different org. The users here are different than the users over here. So as you can see, it's a different set of people, right? So that's what I'm talking about, that your users are not shared org to org, but they are the same group of people in that org, right? So site to site, they can all be the same type of use. But if you're talking two different orgs, it's going to be two different configurations. So definitely have a very deep and thorough understanding of what's the difference between the org, which is the big box, right, as indicated here, and then your sites. And I think we're making it harder than it actually is, Bob, because it's really trivial, really.
Yeah.
So that's it for that one. So that kind of covers understand the purpose and structure of an Atlassian organization. Let's go to this one. So these are just the steps, right? This case basically walks us through everything we just did. But this is an interesting one, right? So this right here might be on the exam and something I did not do. But you can actually just go to atlassian.com/o/create and create an org without adding the products.
Right. You actually need this if you are going to start out with Atlassian Access. You create the organization the way that Alex is showing right now, and then from there you can add a trial version of Atlassian Access.
I'm just gonna add stuff. Hopefully this one doesn't take 10 days. So okay, so this will pipe you through the Atlassian Access. Now, why would a company go through this route over the other route?
I think when they so you definitely want to do this when you're looking at a migration type situation, and that the cloud organization is going to be using SSO. Usually with most migrations, or at least the ones where you're going to incorporate SSO and provisioning with LDAP, you set up access first, and you can then make sure that your users are all set up before you do migration of Jira or Confluence from, say, server or data center to cloud.
Right. Okay. So also, I'm just gonna try to finish objective 1.1 apparently today. So let's talk quickly about the Atlassian account because that's something that's on here too. So what's the Atlassian account? It's you must have an Atlassian account to manage your Atlassian cloud. And as we mentioned earlier, your email becomes your Atlassian account or Atlassian ID the moment that you sign up. So that kind of just happens automatically. And what kind of information is tied to an Atlassian account? So it mainly takes your email address and your display name. And your Atlassian account is used throughout the Atlassian ecosystem, right? So signing up for like Atlassian community events, right? That's your Atlassian ID. Answering questions in the Atlassian community.atlassian.com website,
Right.
Going through the Atlassian University. These are all using that same Atlassian ID. So
Right.
they only use your email and your display name, but that does become your identity to the wonderful world of Atlassian.
Right. And that also includes if you do things like submit a review for a marketplace app. That will key off of your Atlassian account too.
What's an example of how an Atlassian account is used? So when an admin sets up permissions or tags you as an owner of a specific issue, they use your Atlassian account, right? So in the tool itself, right, when you're in Confluence or in Jira and somebody sets you as the assignee, they're flagging you with your Atlassian account.
Right.
And can one person have multiple Atlassian accounts? Yes, because I have like 1,000. You can have as many Atlassian accounts as you have emails.
Right.
So if you're the owner of kingbob.com, we're going to come after you. Does kingbob.com even exist, Bob?
I don't know. I wonder if Rodney's claimed that domain while we were.
That should be like a porn site, and I just hit enter. Let's do it. It's a watch.
Oh.
To King Bob, I apologize. We're definitely stealing your website. Don't come after me. Clinton Road, Fairfield, New Jersey. Let's call him up. Tell him we want. Watch this guy. Poor guy gets just a bunch of like spam for my videos. Okay. Creating a new organization. We talked about that already. So there's two ways to create the organization. One's inherited, right? When you go and sign up for the product, you're going to get it. The other way is to go to admin.atlassian.com/o/create. And I think I've never personally done it this way, right? But you can definitely come at it from this perspective as well. By the way, the pricing here for Atlassian Access, I know we were talking about it earlier. Here's the pricing in case you cared. So it's $4 a user, $3 for the next 250 to 1,000, and then it's basically $1.50 for up to 5,000 users, and then
Right. So
$1.
these are the specific user tiers.
Yeah.
So.
And I just love this part, by the way, Bob. Like, I don't know. Meet Bob. It's not just me picking on Bob. Apparently Atlassian does it too. So we got, I'm just trying to see if we missed anything. So I think we got everything there. Events during the site creation process. There are several notable events that always occur during this creation. So the chosen product is added, Jira Software, for example. The special Jira administration product is added. So that we talked about that being here. So when you add a new product, right, especially when it comes to Jira, you're going to get this and you're going to get this. So those are non-negotiable. Bob is created. So the first person, right, the initiator of all this, they become employee number 1, as you can see here. Then you can add other people. The special site admins group is created. So this is, again, where we're going to have a deviation from the exam and what you're going to see here, because there is no mention of a site admins in the new Jira. But this used to say site admin. So everything you see here, by the way, and we'll talk about this in one of the next modules, everything you see here are default groups, non-negotiable. You get them by simply buying Jira. You can add more. You can come up here and add more. These are non-negotiable, and as far as I know, you can't delete them. Oh, you can. No, you cannot. Why would it give it to me red?
Well, we're going to talk about that a little later when we start talking about default access groups. You'll see that those were created as specific purposes. Basically, whenever, because you can give a role to a specific user, and when you give that role to a user, that user is going to be added to all of the default access groups that for that specific role.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna go ahead and process this now because I need more users in here for this to work out later. But you're gonna want to add a couple users. And again, I don't know why this works. I feel like this should not work. Like, I shouldn't be able to add fake users. Don't email Bob at King Bob or Rodney at King Bob, and please don't email me. But
so there's a question here from Akash Singh, possibly an unrelated question. So does a site admin can a site admin add users to their instance if the user already has an Atlassian account in the organization?
that's an interesting question. So I would say if the user already exists, you can't double invite the user.
I'm wondering if it's like if there are multiple sites, if a user could be added to site B if they already have an Atlassian account. And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, that is correct, right? So yeah, if your user is in site A and and within your organization you have a site B, then yes, because when you look at a specific user, right? So let's go back to just adding Bob here, right? We added Bob to this Jira and to this Jira, but it is possible for me to take him off of this one and he only has access to one. So in your particular scenario, you're telling me, hey, Bob has access to these 2 Jiras. I want him access to this one. Well, all you got to do is go here and click the checkbox. But what I'm saying though is still true though, right? You don't need to invite the user again. The user already, as long as the user exists in your org, at that point you're manipulating drop downs. You're not having to invite the user again. Okay, additional groups can be created, right? So you can come over here, and then later we'll talk about that default access group. But pay special attention to this access to. I'm just going to create one right now, right? But demo group ACP-520, and I'm just going to hit create and pay very special attention to product access, right? So when I click back on groups, you'll notice that group that I just created has none right here. We will talk about that later, I hope. But this is very, very important. We will want to talk about this in detail. And then Bob becomes the administrator of his chosen product. Okay, there's a lot happening in the background after Bob signed up. Don't worry. Okay, configurations within the chosen In addition to configurations you just learned about, the user who creates. Okay, so I don't know what any of this means. Another way to create the organization, we already talked about the admin. So definitely, so the exam material does talk about going through admin.atlassian.com/o/create. So definitely know that that is a different method, because again, I've never done it. I've done like 1,000 Jiras and I've never had to go down this route. So keep that in mind. And accessing a new site. So if you're the org admin for an existing site, you will see sites under your sites drop down. Where's that at? There's a sites drop down?
Yes. I usually see it under like I think like either overview or maybe on you were previously on products, right?
Yes, I was on products, but I don't
Go to
know.
settings. I think it actually might be under settings.
It says so accessing the new sites. If you're an org admin from an existing site or sites, you will see the sites in your site drop down. Where the hell? I've never. Oh, maybe here? Because it's the only place that I know I can switch between them here.
Yeah.
This, folks, as far as I know, when you are, but I wouldn't say that you're. Depending on which sites. So I'll say it this way: if you have access to multiple sites, when you click on this little grid here and you click on this little black arrow, this will show you all the sites that you have access to. And you can toggle between them, right? So you don't have to memorize the URL. Barney wants to know, how many times can you say the word sites before it stops being a real word?
That's an actual term. It's called semantic association. Ted Lasso fans know about that.
Okay, so we're down to the end now for an exam hint. Can I show these? Should I show these? This is just a hint. I'm gonna show it. Sometimes questions about creating a new Atlassian organization and site are written ambiguously on purpose. So the point is to evaluate your understanding of what is created and configured at bare minimum during the sign up process. So again, if you haven't created what we just did in this video, right, definitely go through the motions of setting up a new site, because they're going to quiz you on it. For example, if a question states Joseph signed up for a site from a product pricing page, but doesn't actually identify which one, you cannot assume anything about the product Joseph chose or its product specific configurations. This is where I think, Bob, having too much information is a bad thing. Because now you're in blanks, right? And it's a very dangerous thing to do, is to fill in those blanks. The only thing you know is that he has chosen some product. So folks, as another pro tip, right, going back to like the beginning half of this training here, is be very, very, like, read every word. Every word in that question has a purpose for being in the question.
Yep.
As a result, an organization, site, and product were created along with a single user in the directory, Joseph, obviously, who's the one that made it, who became its org admin. Also, the site admins group and some product groups were created, although we do not know which ones. Yep. So this is just, again, just be careful. Let's do one. Let's do a sample question. Okay. And again, this is probably my favorite part. Okay. So in the chat here, you guys are more than welcome to kind of help answer, right? But you want to create a new Atlassian site from a product pricing page. What is required for you to do so? Payment details, an email address for a non-public domain, an Atlassian account, an existing Atlassian organization, or a billing address. So, Bob, this is where I would, again, hit the process of elimination, right? We
Right.
know no credit cards required. So this is out and this is out automatically.
Okay.
A and E. So we know now that just B, C, and D are viable options, right? Again, just off the cuff answer here. So now let's look at B, an email address from a non-public domain. So that means, like, what is public domain? So I'm assuming this is where you got to have a little bit more knowledge, right? But
Yeah.
I know
Let me fill in a little bit of knowledge. So a non-public domain basically means that something that is not a popular email domain. In other words,
your Gmails,
not
your Hotmails.
yahoo.com, not gmail.com.
So basically, you have to have like a company email.
Right. Right.
But that's not true because you all saw me sign up with the Gmail, right? So that one's automatically eliminated.
Okay.
So now we're left with C and D. Now this is where things get tricky, right? Because again, unless you do this often, which most of us don't, this could be a trick question, right? Because an existing Atlassian organization, that means that you already have an org and you're simply going to go and add a product. But you notice that when I signed up the first time, I didn't have anything. And I did go to the product page and I just signed up. But you'll notice the step that I skipped was having an Atlassian account because I was already logged into my Atlassian account. So I'm going to go with C because I don't think that this is required. Let's do it. Let's see. Again, folks, I'm a horrible test taker. This is why Bob's going to have to drag me into the test facility.
Yeah, just let me know. Oh,
And
you
yes,
got
it's
it right.
correct. All right. 39 more to go. 39 more. So, and folks, this is what I'm talking about. This is where I like for you guys to practice these, right? Because you'll also learn why they're incorrect. Obviously, I gave you my 2 cents, but if I'm not there with you, it's good for you to look at these sample questions and try to figure out what's correct or not correct, right? Because it helps reinforce that learning. So D, which I was on the fence, right, is you can sign up for a new, although I don't like their answer, you can sign up for a new organization and site. Yeah, your Atlassian account, your online Atlassian identity that exists independently of the Atlassian products you use to administer. You must have an Atlassian account to create and manage an Atlassian cloud product. Cool. Number 2, and I think we'll end it here, Bob. I think this is a good stopping point here at the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
You just signed up. Wow, and we're going to be here for a while. So maybe next time we don't also spend an hour overviewing and giving best tips. Although I thought it was good information to have at the beginning, right?
Yeah. It's good to set
All right.
things up.
So you just signed up for a Confluence. You just signed up for Confluence on a new Atlassian site, which prompt did you receive during the sign-up process? See, this is where exactly you need to go through the motions, right? You just can't like read a document or Atlassian documentation and expect to remember it, right? Like you have to actually do it. So you just signed up. You just signed up for a Confluence, right? So anything related to Jira, by the way, is automatically out of the question, right? So that would be my first thing. But what did you get prompted to? So we have to create a space, to create a default group, to enable access requests, to disable invitation links, or to set space permissions. So again, I like to hit these from a process of elimination, right? And even though we didn't go through the motions of setting up a group, a Confluence, I've done one before. And so these default groups are usually default. So you're not asked to create them, right? They're just made out of the box for you. So this can't be right. To disable invitation links, usually in a setup process for either Jira or Confluence, you're asked to invite, but seldom does Atlassian not want money. So they definitely don't give you the option to disable these links. So I think this would be wrong. What am I doing? What happened? Why am I missing this? So whatever number it is, Alex passed it with the last sentence. What did Ronnie say?
Oh, he's trying to enlist Lena to keep you
to make sure I
honest.
get to the test facility. All right. So I don't think it's D either, right? Because again, this would seem anti-capitalism, in my opinion. And then so to set space permissions, this is not something you do on the sign-up process, right? This is something you do later. And so you don't really control this. So that leaves us with enable access requests and create a space. And so now if I'm leaning towards A, but if I'm looking at C right now, the reason I haven't eliminated it is because this, I think, though, should be eliminated because it's very tightly coupled with space permissions. And I don't think that you get to set this up at the beginning, like at least during the sign-up process. I think it's one of the first things you get to do, but not during the sign-up process. I definitely know that when you're signing up, right, you're giving the site name, and then you're creating that first space for the first time. So my gut's saying A, so we're going to click on A, and we're correct. So I'm 2. So I only got to get 38 more.
There you go.
2 more. All right. So that's pretty much
actually, let me kind of steer you through my process of elimination on that one. It was not going to be be it was not going to be creating a default group. It was not going to be enabling access requests, and it was not going to be disabling invitation links. Those are all things that are really above the scope of Confluence. And so this is kind of part of the setup of Confluence or Confluence Cloud.
So
And
sometimes
so
you
it
got to
was
use a
going to
little common
be
sense
probably
there.
A or E setting up space permissions or creating a space, and you have to set up the space first.
Right. All right, folks. Well, we are at the 2-hour mark here, and I think it was a little foolish for us to think that we can get through the section that is 50% of the exam in 1 hour. So we're gonna pick it back up. I think after Thanksgiving. So if you did enjoy this kind of session, let us know. We definitely want to do a couple more. Although the next ones will probably have to be on the weekend because this is a special holiday week where most of us are not working. But I will definitely be working a lot the week after Thanksgiving. So we may move these to a Saturday, Sunday session. But if you were interested, let us know. Let us know in the comment section here. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I have 11,500 subscribers. So at this point, I stopped asking for this channel. But if you want to subscribe, let me know. So we have a question here. Off topic, which professional certification exam do you recommend for beginners? 1 to 2 years. I would say this one. No, this is probably the easiest one.
I would say this one, but I really so Emilio, I'm gonna throw the it depends flag. What did you do in Jira? Were you a project admin? Are you a Jira admin? If you're a project admin, you probably could look at taking their ACP 610 or 620 exams, which deal with how do you work with projects and boards and JQL. If you're a Jira admin, then the 100 or 120. So Jira admin is going to be cream of the crop, ACP 100 or 120.
Concur.
And for cloud, that's ACP 120.
Yep. And then also don't forget that the new ACAs, right? Which again, not necessarily your admin, but still, I would say get you into the flow of taking an Atlassian exam type of thing, right? Because again, if you're freaking out as much as I am, because again, I'm telling you, the only reason I'm not certified is because I don't want to take that damn test. There's a way for me to just like maybe do an oral exam, or maybe even just do the damn thing in the UI, right? Like actually, like a practicum. I think I wouldn't be as worried. But it's the fact that these damn questions are so confusing. It scares the crap out of me. All right, folks. Well, we are, again, at the 2-hour mark here. So if you did enjoy it, let us know in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you smash the subscribe button and come back. We will be doing these. I got 90 days to get through all these so that I can take the exam. Although I promised King Bob I'm going to do this before the end of Christmas. So definitely after December 8th, I'm going to have a lot more bandwidth. And so we'll be able to maybe get to the rest of these. So study along. Again, it's always good to take some breaks, review the sessions, and if you haven't done it already, go and buy the exam, right? It's still $100. We don't know how long it's going to be. And also not this Thursday, so the Thursday after Thanksgiving, so November 30th, the makers or organizers of the exam are going to be on wait, was that December 7th? That's December 7th. December 7th, so in 2 weeks time, the organizers of the exam are going to be on the Jira Life. So if you haven't checked out the Jira Life, it's the Jira guy and I, and Bob's our executive producer. We running a podcast here talking about Atlassian stuff. So anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bob, for taking the time out of your busy Tuesday morning to deal with
Always
us.
happy to.
And hopefully the Atlassian community, you all have now some. I'm going to do this for the rest of them, by the way. All right, folks. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time.